Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dustin Gaylor, Dr. Dustin Gaylor. Dustin is the author of the book that we're promoting here, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about Dustin. He received his PhD in history from the University of Toronto. In fact, his thesis research was on the history of the disability rights movement in Canada. And then more recently, he was doing a postdoctoral fellowship with the Center for Research on Work Disability Policy. He completed his fellowship at the School of Health Policy and Management at York University with Dr. Marcia Ryu. He's the founder of an organization called My Historian. It's a personal history service company that produces personal memoirs, family histories, and corporate history projects. He has completed a book for our conference that's titled Disability and Work in Canada, Portraits of a System. We're launching this book here tonight, and Dustin is going to speak briefly about the project as well as calling on some of the people that are profiled in the book. The proceeds of this book will all go towards supporting the conference and the community activities related to it. There's already an ebook version available. It's available on lulu.com for $11.50. We are also going to be producing a print version of the book that will be available shortly. It's actually profiled. There's a couple of prototypes in the back corner there with a big poster that you also saw on the screen here so you can get a sense of what that book looks like. That'll be out shortly as well. There's details as well. You can take a flyer that's there to get more details about purchasing the book, the ebook or a print version of the book. So Dustin, are you around? Okay, take it away, Dustin.
Thanks very much, Emil. My name is Dustin, and as Emil said, I run a business called My Historian that documents corporate histories and life stories. When I was a graduate student in history at the University of Toronto, I studied the long history of Canadians with disabilities and their exclusion from the labor market. I learned about post-war vocational rehabilitation efforts and the lives of wounded veterans, of hiring campaigns instructing employers to hire the handicapped, it's good for business, that was the slogan, of injured workers groups and the struggles of disability rights activists to engineer a new image of disability in Canada, one that represented people with disabilities as both empowered and employable. I captured much of this research in my book, Working Toward Equity, but I also wanted to leverage this knowledge to support initiatives that produce meaningful change, which is why I got involved with the CRWDP as a collaborator on several initiatives, and most recently as a postdoctoral fellow. One of the first few things that struck me working with people outside the humanities included the sense that history and background began just 5, 10, or 20 years ago, rather than the deeper historical timelines I was used to working with. This approach is understandable given the nature of the research and close association with recommending policy change, but I just couldn't help but wonder how a contemporaneous point of view misses a great deal by refraining to pause and look back from time to time. Presently, the work disability system in Canada is the product of its own history. A series of historical policy developments reflecting efforts to address emergent unmet needs on an ad hoc basis, an uncoordinated grid of programs and services that exist that are variously designed to enable people with disabilities to re-enter, maintain, or secure employment. Pathways to employment are linked to the income security program for which an individual qualifies, with criteria being generally established within each program silo. Eligibility for income and disability supports vary based on individual circumstances and location, as does the availability, affordability, and responsiveness of these supports. At the same time, there has been important progress, including technological change, awareness of disability issues, and employer and other stakeholder champions who drive others toward a more inclusive workplace. There is a growing sense that there is a need to focus on these strengths to help drive government policies toward improvement. This brings me to the present work. Work Disability, Portraits of a System, uses the power of personal narratives to educate and enlighten readers about people with disabilities in relation to experiences of living, working, employing, and advocating for change. Readers will learn about the trials and tribulations of people struggling to find and maintain paid employment in the face of lifelong illness or other health issues. Readers will also meet advocates and employers finding creative solutions to connect job seekers with employment opportunities. Individually and together, these portraits reveal the fragmentary nature of the work disability system. While some profiles reflect an awareness of the origins of the policies that govern them, as in the case of injured workers and workers' compensation systems, each profile sheds important light on the daily realities of people forced to navigate the system. The intent of the book is not only to educate and inspire meaningful change, but to also find its way into the hands of employers, policymakers, and advocates like yourselves to help bring about that change. At the core of the book are the experiences of people who have interacted with the work disability system as support users, accommodated workers, employers, advocates, and community agencies. Representing but a fraction of the many complex issues at play, their stories shed greater light on the historical legacies of the work disability developments by highlighting the pitfalls, successes, and opportunities for operationalizing a way forward. Now, at this point, before I have a couple speakers from the book come up, I would like to share a brief excerpt from one of the profiles of the book. I would like to introduce you all to Lynn, and because Lynn isn't here today, I'm going to be speaking in her voice. My name is Lynn. I'm 49 years old. I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. I was born 2 months premature. All the doctors said I would never walk, talk, or eat, but I am still here. I have some developmental delays in learning and comprehension, which sometimes mean my speech gets mixed up. When I'm out working, it makes me feel good about myself and like I don't have a disability. I have people who love me for who I am and don't treat me like someone with a disability. My first job was at Pizza Express, where I worked for 7 years as a dishwasher. An employment agency here in town set up a job coach who was there in case I needed help lifting things or if I got stressed out. I left that job because I wanted to go back to school and learn a trade. I was a full-time student with the help of tutors, and I did courses in commercial baking and graphic construction and design. Later, I took a 12-week full-time employment preparation and skills training program for adults who have experienced barriers to employment or who have had long periods of unemployment as the result of mental health issues or other events in their lives. We did crafts and sewing and upholstery and learned other marketable skills. I found a job at Zellers through an employment agency where I worked for 2 years. I had a job coach because I still felt I needed it at the time. Then I was unemployed for a while. I received employment income supports each time I was unemployed, but only for a short time. One day, I decided to apply for a job on my own. I went down to the local Sobeys grocery store and applied to work in the bakery. I had taken commercial baking in school, so I thought I should use my skills. They offered me a job, and I took it. I was working in the bakery, packing the cold freezer, slicing bread, putting stuff on the shelves. I didn't have a job coach. I decided I wanted to do this on my own this time. Everyone was really good, pitching in and helping me do the job well. I also felt really good to be able to find and work at a job on my own. I know I have a mental disability, but finding a job on my own made me feel really good about myself. I left my job at Sobeys to return to school and upgrade my skills. I took an office administration course and had a work placement at the Arthritis Society. My placement was a paid position funded through the Hope Works program, a part-time pre-employment program. They would have hired me on permanently if they had the funding, but they didn't. When my placement ended, I went on EI and had to look for other work. I had trouble finding work for a few years. I did a paid internship program at Empower Disability Resource Center. I was helping out doing administrative work on the computer. The internship program lasted 10 months since that was all the funding they had available. Eventually, I had a job as an administrative assistant at a local MP's office. I work on the computer, answer phones, do filing, stuff like that. And I love my work. It's the stuff I was trained to do. I make above minimum wage and work 12 hours a week. It would be nice to work more, and I would take a second job if I could find it. I would be much happier with 25 hours a week, but I've found when I work too much, I get overworked and overtired. When I'm not working, it feels depressing. I love to be out doing stuff, working on my own, making my own money, and keeping myself busy. It makes me feel like I'm part of the broader community. If I didn't have a job coach or coworkers who didn't support me, I'd probably get very frustrated and maybe couldn't do all the jobs I've done. Fortunately, I've always worked in a place where I felt supported. I make my own money now. I want to get my own apartment or share a place with a friend. I don't want to have to rely on income supports or welfare. I do know people who are on it. It's frustrating because they're my friends, and because they're not working, they don't feel like they have any money. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they feel like they can't work. But if I can, anybody else can. I think we need to get the word out there that there are people with disabilities like me who want to work. I think there are a lot of employers who don't realize people with disabilities can be productive. If it weren't for the career development coordinator at Empower, I wouldn't have found out about this job. It's really important to support agencies like Empower because they provide opportunities for people like me who want to work. I've been working for years, and the only reason I would leave this job is if I absolutely had to. I love my job, and I'll stay there as long as I can. Thank you for listening to Lynn's story. As Emile said, we are taking pre-orders for the book, and you can flip through a sample copy. The ebook version is available now with instructions on how to download it on the display board. And the final print version will be available shortly in the coming weeks. If you'd like to leave your information, either myself or Emile will reach out to you directly when it's available for purchase. Now, I would like to, if we have time, I would like to invite Jamie Burton and then Steve Mantis to come up, both of whom are profiled in the book, and just say a few words from their profile. Thanks very much.
I am Jamie Burton, and I'm the co-founder and vice president of Dolphin Digital Technologies. We are a small tech firm specializing in using technology to tackle social issues. And we have landed there through no planning, no foresight, and certainly no original intent other than the fact that we started our business to have an impact on community and on social. This is a little bit of what is in the book. Universally inclusive recruitment and employment strategies that focus on skills and potential are key to finding untapped talent. Dolphin has a very proactive approach to problem solving. We share ideas and get to work together on finding solutions. Most companies function from a stance of mitigation and exclusion. We lose out on so much potential of good talent because we fail to realize that recruitment tools don't recognize that maybe a gap in someone's resume may be a cancer treatment or caregiving responsibilities or an episodic disability. It's an egregious error on the part of employers who fail to recognize that life is fluid. It's vital that we don't create barriers to success to facilitate our own eagerness to do things same old, same old. We need to ensure the algorithms behind solutions are built on an unbiased foundation that is inclusive in its design. When you challenge someone to come up with something in an unbiased space and do something in a unique way that no one has ever done, it's a beautiful place to exist. It's why I'm proud to work at Dolphin every day. Being able to apply those solutions to ensure everyone can utilize those solutions is an unparalleled opportunity. If recruitment technology is barrier-free, there is a greater potential on finding untapped talent. The future of business is in being able to have business address social needs in an integrated way so that it benefits both business and community in which the business resides. It's going to be the business community operating within a responsible economy and doing business differently that helps us effectively apply solutions to address social needs. In 2011, I founded Dolphin Disabilities Mentoring Day to help connect talented people to employers. By putting two people together in a skills-based workplace that is acceptable to both, you increase productivity, confidence in a competitive marketplace. At the same time, this approach ensures we have workplaces that are diverse and inclusive. I believe there will come a day when it is difficult to find talent who identify as having a disability because it will have been made so competitive to employ them, because that is who's going to solve the problems of our future. People who adapt every day, people who are flexible in their interactions with each other, and people who consistently make a difference. I have every confidence that if business focuses on talent, removes barriers, and looks at it as a strategic opportunity within every line of business, they will succeed better than they have ever anticipated. But the messaging must change. It must be first and foremost about matching talent with needs. The whole business case of hiring people with disabilities is an old line. It harkens back to a time when people were put into silos to make it comfortable about talking about the issue. When there's still us and them, that's a problem. The private sector has a vital role to play regarding employment of people with disabilities. And when we foster a culture shift away from a focus on disability and difference and move towards a focus on talent and potential, we will all be doing better business. Thank you.
Hi, you've heard from me already. I'm Steve Mantis, and I'm one of the advocates in the book. I lost my arm 39 years ago working construction and was introduced to the workers' compensation system. And along the way, I saw how the system didn't serve people that well. And it's a system across Canada that goes through about $10 billion a year. And it was founded 100 years ago to help workers who were injured and disabled in the workplace. So a lot of the time I have been putting in the last 35 years has been focusing on what really happens to injured workers after their injury. Part of my little piece in the book talks about we've consistently lobbied the government to engage in long-term tracking of employment, health, and quality of life outcomes for workers with a permanent impairment receiving workers' compensation, or many of them who aren't any longer receiving workers' compensation. Well, it hasn't happened. In fact, we started this in 1992, and we wrote to every compensation board in Canada and said, what happens to the people you are there to serve long term? Most of them didn't write us back, but those that did said, well, geez, we don't know. And the most progressive ones said, but if you find out, please let us know. We're a bunch of injured workers, many of whom are unemployed and in poverty, and it's our responsibility to actually uncover what really happens, how well our public systems are working. So this is our first public system that's part of our social safety net in Canada. And they still don't know what happens with injured workers. In fact, I was at a meeting just this morning at the Ontario Workers' Compensation Board, now called Safety and Insurance Board. And they said very proudly that they're the only compensation board that actually is beginning to look at employment outcomes for injured workers. All the rest just can tell you that when they have cut people off benefits. And to them, that is the measure of success, that you're gone. My last little paragraph in the book really so much reflects what Jamie just talked about. That a more participatory approach to accommodation that involves all staff in decision-making works. It makes workers more productive and loyal and takes the guesswork out of accommodations. Of course, there's always production demands and expectations. If workplaces had more respect for a participatory style, where workers are encouraged to contribute to the best of their ability, then I think we have a more productive and happier workplace. But to get there, we need to work on the legal and cultural structures that challenge this approach. And really, that's the challenge for all of us over the next 2 or 3 days, to see how can we think outside the box? How can we use some of those skills that we with disabilities have had to learn to adapt in different ways that most people haven't, to solve these big challenges that provide support to people with disabilities so that they can actually pay their bills and take the next step to move into productive employment and really make all our workplaces a better place. Thanks so much.